Hello, hello, and welcome to this very special episode because I feel like I've wanted to dive into the nitty-gritty about certain very minute subjects. But in order to get to that point, I had to kind of go through a lot of the bigger subjects and kind of start getting narrowed down. So I had the epiphany the other day as I was watching like a video that I want to talk about specific foods and kind of break those down a little bit and go with that very minute subject, but have a lot of things kind of encompassing with it, right? So today we are talking about specifically eggs and bacon. So if you've listened before or you know anything about me, you know that I am a vegan. And so before you get freaked out and think, oh my gosh, she's just going to talk about how we shouldn't eat these products, that's not what I'm here for. This is a factual conversation that we're having about these specific food items. And I've always been an advocate that what works for me doesn't work for everybody. And what works for Tom and Susie and Jack is not always going to be the same. Like we all have different backgrounds and upbringings, and our gut microbiome is different, and our needs and what our bodies are craving is all different. And so I felt like this was a really good place to talk about food because they are a couple of items that people love and absolutely go wild. Both of them are very versatile. They are put in a lot of different kinds of food. They can be dressed up to be healthy and they can be really, really unhealthy. And so it just feels like it's a good spot. And they're breakfast items. So it's the first thing that a lot of people eat during the day. And so to start out with talking about breakfast, especially here in the United States, breakfast has gotten away from this bacon and egg, protein and fat rich breakfast item and has become so much more of a fast, quick hit. Like we're on our way out the door. We got kids to get on the bus. We got jobs. We got to eat in the car. We got to go, 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 go. So even if you are going to, say, McDonald's, for example, to get like a bacon and egg like sandwich, you are still adding in all of these other things that make it fast and convenient. You're not actually spending the time in front of the stove, in front of, in the kitchen, making this eggs and bacon from scratch. And so what do we lean towards? That's the easiest. That's super fast and quick to eat, right? It's carbohydrate based donuts and pastries and cereals and breads. And that is really a nice fix to get in the morning, right? Because it tastes sweet. It's so good. It's the first thing that hits your body. And what it does is it actually spikes your insulin and it sets you on this path and tone for the rest of the day to be craving that carb, that sugar for the rest of the day. So there's a lot of studies that show the best way to support your insulin is by that first fasting break food, breakfast, should be high in protein and high in fat. Now, protein and fat go together. If you think about bacon, for example, we all know that there's fat in bacon, right? There's actually, and this is just a quick research that I did before this recording, for 2 pieces of bacon, it's about 80 calories, which is not bad. Most people don't just eat 2 pieces of bacon, right? But we have 5 grams of protein and we have 7 grams of fat. So we know protein is fatty, right? Because we know that bacon is fatty because, some people trim it off. We know that it's like really greasy, all that stuff. Now, this is just like one source's talk about bacon. There's different variations of bacon. Do you drain the fat? Or are you cutting the fat off? Blah, blah, blah. But there's more fat than there is protein. So when you think about like, oh, it's a protein, so it's a meat. I've talked about this before. Not all meat is pure protein. Not all meat is more protein than it is other things, but you're not going to find any carbs in bacon. Now, do we add carbs to bacon? Yes, absolutely, all the time. Like most people can't just have bacon without mixing it with some sort of a carb. Like if you've ever been to the Minnesota State Fair, I love this example. There is a full bacon like spot that you can go to and like a booth that you can order all different kinds of bacon. You can have a candied bacon, you can have a chocolate covered bacon. Like they are going to make that bacon as flavorful as possible. And so, yeah, you get this huge burst of, sugar and fats and protein, and it seems so good, but is it actually filling your nutrient cup, or is it going to deplete some of those nutrients that it's almost like it cancels out anything that was good about it? Now, another piece that I want to talk about with bacon is that it's really high in sodium. Another reason why we really like it, right? Because it's very, very salty. And it's a nice additive to like salads and to burgers. And like if you chop it up, you can put it in all kinds of different things. Now, I'm going to admit something to you guys because I am human. I was out visiting and having dinner with one of my friends, and we stopped at this restaurant. I knew that they had vegan options, and I was like, oh, let me just get a veggie burger. I don't always eat them, but it was fine. And I was looking at the things that you can add onto it. I was like, let's throw some tomatoes, some lettuce, some pickles. And I saw this like onion jam. It's like, that sounds great. Throw in the onion jam. But I totally read past bacon onion jam. So when my burger arrived and I took a bite in it, and I was like, what is that? And it was bacon bits. And so I was so into this conversation with my friend, and my husband and my kids were all there. Like, we're all just like eating our food and all that stuff. And I was like, meh, whatever. It's fine. And it was good. Like, so bacon onion jam. Yeah. But, I didn't shrivel up and die. I didn't, croak. It didn't mess with my cholesterol, like nothing, it is what it is. Now, when we talk about eating bacon, everything in moderation, right? Like, there are all kinds of different scopes that we could go down specifically with bacon. How is it processed? Was that pig treated well, like ethically when it was raised? What was that pig ed? What was that pig fed? How was that stress of that animal during the time of its slaughter? Like, when you think of these things, like, I'm not trying to go down these routes to be like, oh, animals have feelings and all stuff, like, but it's like, if you are eating something that was rushed in its body full of that stress hormone cortisol and completely, eating trash and garbage, like, what do you think that does to its makeup, its muscle, its pieces that you are about to eat? And if you think like, oh, it gets burned off or gets cooked off when we make it, like, maybe, yeah, okay, but it's something to think about, right? So we don't know. And sometimes bliss is beautiful when you don't know what's going on, right? Like, I don't want to know what that pig went through. I don't want to know how they kill it. I don't want to know anything, right? Like, I just watched this animal show the other day, and they were taking out this reticulated python, and they were doing an exam on it. It was an emergency vet show. And the python took a dump. And I was like, I could have gone my entire life not knowing how pythons poop and like what it looks like. And it just was one of those things where it's like, I'd rather just not know. And so when it comes to that side of bacon, you can forget and just completely ignore how that pig lived. But that doesn't change the fact that that pig went through something. And so, do plants also go through that kind of stress? Like, we always talk about talking to our plants, right? Saying nice things, and like, you're such a pretty plant when you water it and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. These are like thought-provoking questions. I'm not really sharing a whole lot about my feelings. I'm just bringing things up that are worth a think, right? Worth a Google search, whatever, if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. So if we're putting this bacon in our body, say we're doubling this, we're having 160 calories, 4 pieces of bacon, it's still a decent little punch of fat, and it's a decent little punch of protein. What kind of fat is this? Is this the bad fat? Is this the good fat? It depends on who you ask. If you ask somebody that is all about, paleo and really feels like that fat that comes from meat is really good for you, they'll tell you that it's heart protective. They'll tell you that it's not going to build up cholesterol in your blood vessels, things like that. But all of that really depends on what else you're eating for the rest of the day. So if you are eating really clean food and you're eating that animal fat and you're not throwing in a lot of that like processed, candy, goldfish, like all of that kind of fat as well, then you're probably protecting your heart and you're probably protecting your blood vessels by just eating this meat-based fat. So it's not a simple, straightforward answer, but to start your day with a good, healthy dose of bacon, make sure it's not, pumped full of like a bunch of extra chemicals and stuff so it lasts on the shelf for super long. Like some people get their bacon straight fresh from the butcher. That might be a safer bet for you. It might not mess with your hormones. It might not mess with your gut health. I do have a very big concern when it comes to pork and our digestive system. Pork is linked to colon cancer, and nitrates are linked to migraines and all of these things. And nitrates are found in things like hot dogs and bacon and things like that. So it's a consideration that you may need to make for yourself. So if you suffer from those things, or if you have colon cancer in your family, maybe you just got to think, is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you love bacon so much you can't give it up that you'd rather put yourself through cancer treatment and weigh your chances and maybe get a giant section of your colon resected because you love bacon so much? So can you for sure know that bacon is the culprit? No, but is it worth the risk? Is it worth it? That's for you to decide. And so I made the decision for myself. Do I let my kids eat bacon? Yeah, sometimes. But I'm not going to have it constantly all the time. Again, everything in moderation, but moderation is going to look different for me than for you, than for Uncle Steve and Josephine. And I'm just throwing out weird names today. I hope this is thought-provoking. I don't know if this is like touching any nerve for anybody here, but let's keep going. So now I want to switch over to the egg side, right? So who gets overwhelmed when you go to the grocery store and look at the egg section? There are so many different kinds of eggs now, and they are not cheap. They really aren't. Like the more healthy-ish it looks with the more titles on it, the more expensive it is. I was just looking at quail eggs in my area in the grocery store because they're really neat looking. They're like tiny and they're speckled. And I'm like, Brad, you should eat these quail eggs because they look really cool. But like, I don't know what the difference in taste is or nutritional value. I just was like attracted by how cute they are. So a couple of fun things to just talk about. What's the difference between a white egg and a brown egg? It just has to do with the hen. There's no more nutritional in the brown eggs and the white eggs, unless that white is genetically modified to become white, because that's what we think it is, right? Now, there's cage-free, there's organic, there's free roaming eggs, there's all kinds of hormone-free, blah, blah, blah. If you crack open just a plain old generic white egg and look at the color of the yolk compared to one that's like free roaming, antibiotic free, organic, you will see a difference in color. And if a lot of times the richer, the deeper, the more vibrant the colors, the more nutrients it is. This is a general rule, not all the time, but sometimes those colors are added in because we think a banana should be yellow. If you get a banana that's like not yellow, it messes with that neuron in your brain that's like, banana's yellow, I'm not going to eat a non-banana yellow. You know what I mean? So if you see something that looks more vibrant in color, it could be modified, right? Just to satisfy that. It's like soap. Like you think soap, it has to lather. You think toothpaste, it must lather up and give you lots of bubbles. That is an aesthetic effect that was created just so that we think it's actually working. You know what I mean? So that is just a thing to think about. Maybe I'll do a podcast on like colors and like things that we modify and things like that. But eggs, there's so many different pieces to choose from. What is important to you? Do you care about the stress of that chicken? Again, if they're in a cage, even if they're considered cage free, that just means maybe they have like a 5-foot walkway outside this coop for them to walk. And that's considered cage free. Free roaming means that they're like out there in the pasture, like they can really just roam anywhere. Now, those chickens might not be as healthy, just saying, like, but they're not stressed. They're not put in this tiny little, like, you know, space where they can't move and they don't have any exercise, and their whole sole purpose is just to like poop out these eggs constantly. So like, you kind of have to decide like what part of your ethical stance and what part of like your nutritional value do you want to attach to these eggs? Like, and what brand do you trust? Like, if you've looked at a brand before and you feel like, oh, they're not trustworthy, then okay, don't buy that brand. Now, if you're just going for eggs because you want the nutritional value, like it doesn't matter if it's more nutrient dense or if it's whatever, you just want it. A quick, search again on the facts for it. One large egg is 72 calories. There's like a less than 1 gram of carb in there. There's 4.8 grams of fat and 6.3 grams of protein. So there's more protein than fat here. Now, a lot of people, there's this big push for a while where it's like, don't eat the yolk, don't eat the yolk. That's where all the cholesterol is. Well, again, is this bad cholesterol? Is this bad fat? Or is the fat that's in Doritos? Like, that's the type of thing that there are multiple different kinds of fat. And I will do a podcast on that, and we'll talk about saturated fat, polyunsaturated, trans fat, and all of the differences there. Like, honestly, it's one of those things that like, I hear so much chatter in this space talking about the different kinds of fat and what's the bad, what's the good, what raises your LDL, what lowers your LDL. And honestly, you can't put it in the labels of like trans bad, saturated bad, polyunsaturated bad, like, or what's good. It really comes from the source. So if you look at like avocado as a fat, it's a good source. If you look at eggs as a fat, that's a good source. Like, but if you're looking from, bacon might be more of a not good source for you. I won't say bad source because I don't like labeling food or fats as good or bad, but like maybe that's just not the source that you want to get your fat from. You'd rather get it from eggs than you would for bacon. And you can just have that little ranking system in your brain where it's like, I'd rather not get my fat from, processed food. I'd rather get my fat from animal products and or fruits, and that includes olive oil, avocado, coconut, things like that. And so what makes your body feel the best? And so there is also sodium in eggs, not quite as much as bacon. The 2 pieces of bacon was 320 milligrams of sodium, and the eggs is 71 milligrams of sodium. When I ate eggs, I always put salt on it. I put pink Himalayan sea salt, but man, that just like added the flavor a lot for me. Is that the best thing for you to do first thing in the morning? Are you drinking water first thing in the morning? Like, is that something you're rolling out of bed, drinking a bunch of water? Reminds me that I have a water right here I need to be drinking. So when you are pairing salty foods, you have to connect it with water because sodium pairs with water, and that's how you flush it through. If you are dehydrated, it means that you are overrun with sodium and you don't have enough water. You can also go in the opposite where you can be hyponatremic, meaning that you have not enough sodium in your body and way too much water. So anytime somebody's like, I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day, I'm like, make sure you are getting in electrolytes. And sodium is not the only one. Potassium is a huge piece of our heart, like the way that our body pumps. Like there's the sodium potassium channel that like, that is how things work. Now, do we get naturally a lot of that in our food? Maybe. We don't know. Everybody's different. In 1 large egg, you have 69 milligrams of potassium. And in 2 pieces of bacon, you have 80 milligrams of potassium. I once sat down and looked at all of my supplements, like an average day of food, and I put it all in MyFitnessPal, and I looked at like all of the micronutrients and the vitamins to really see like, what am I getting? How much vitamin C am I getting? How much potassium am I getting? How am I getting all this stuff? Am I blowing some things out of the water? And I was. And am I like underdoing some other things? And I found that my potassium was really low. I was not getting a lot of potassium. And first thing my brain goes to, like most people, is bananas, right? But like, that was just something that I had done the work to sit down and look at everything that I was putting in my body. Most people aren't doing that. Most people aren't checking how much protein they're getting, how much fat they're getting, how many carbohydrates they're getting, what kind of carbohydrates. Are they simple? Are they complex? What kind of fat are you getting? So they just don't know. So when you get bamboozled into buying some sort of a supplement online, like, or because the news said, you need vitamin D because of this and that, but your vitamin D is at a really good level. Do you really want to push it over? Don't just go buy something without doing the research and really looking at what your body needs right now. If you look at vitamin D and you're like, wow, low vitamin D has a lot of the same symptoms that I'm struggling with. Maybe that's a good time, but always check with your doctor if you're unsure. Get your blood drawn, things like that. But I had checked and saw that my potassium was a little bit low. I didn't run out and buy a potassium supplement. I researched what kind of food has high potassium that I could start adding into my diet and making it a part of my everyday system. But that was my choice. Now, when it comes to pairing these two together, eggs and bacon, what if you want to make like a scramble? What if you want to make a, omelet? You can throw cheese in there. You can put veggies in there. You can throw in some dark leafy greens in there. You can do all kinds of like variations. I was so support having a nice omelet in the morning. And maybe you can put in some, feta cheese. Maybe you can put in some like salmon one day. Like you can switch up the different meats and things like that. But if you are concerned about your cholesterol, if you are being told that your cholesterol is too high, like maybe that's an area that you need to take out if you're not willing to compromise cholesterol somewhere else in your life. So a lot of the whole purpose of this podcast, there's a couple things here, but like, I want you to think about what is the best breakfast for you? What is the best source for you to get fat and protein? What is your ethical feelings when it comes to what these animals are going through to provide you these sources? Can you find those sources somewhere else? Like, is this a better option for you than say a Pop-Tart or, pastry at the local bakery, things like that. But also like, I'm sharing with this podcast because we don't think about these things on our own. We don't think about our relationship with bacon, our relationship with eggs. Maybe it reminds you of your childhood. Maybe it is something that your parents never made you as a kid, and now you want to make it because you're an adult and you can do it and nobody can tell you. But is it serving you? Are these two foods being in your diet serving your goals? Now, you might not have a specific goal. Maybe you don't want to lose weight. Maybe you don't want to like gain muscle or anything like that. But like, maybe your goal is to just feel good, to balance your hormones, to sleep better, to be less stressed. Like, putting these foods in your body, does it propel you in that direction? And if it doesn't, but you can't let go of these, explore why. And don't do it alone. Now, if you don't know, I have had a health coaching business and I don't try to plug it a whole lot. But one of the reasons why I created that business is because I needed somebody to help me through a lot of the things that I had to figure out and do on my own. I still have epiphanies all the time that I'm like, wow, how have I missed this all along? Because we get blinded from our own life. And you can say, I'm going to go to the doctor, or I'm going to, see something that I'm already paying for health insurance and I'm already paying, all this other stuff, but they are not going to give you the time of day. You're going to get a 20-minute consultation and, unless there's something wrong, a lot of the times they're not going to sit there and work with you. And if you want to go to a more foundational, like a more functional type doctor and things like that, you're going to pay a lot more than you would for somebody who is a trained nutritionist and a health coach and a nurse, just like me. So maybe this is a little bit more of a plug, but if you are in a place where you're like, I don't know how to analyze what I'm putting in my body, but I am tired of feeling XYZ, maybe it's time that you and I have a consult. Never any pressure, never any strings attached. You're going to walk away with that consult with at least something to move on with. Or you can just keep listening to my podcast for free. Now, I am always cheering you on. I want the best for you. I'm not out here trying to just like take everybody's money all the time, but it's an investment in your future and in your life. And so just think about it. So that wraps up for today. I hope that you have a fabulous day. Enjoy your breakfast, enjoy your lunch, enjoy your dinner, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.